Well, Season 8 is here, and we're going to look at all of the gameplay changes that are coming. Of course, there's all this new stuff. We've got the new OPR map. We've got the hardcore mode with rewards if you don't die during hardcore mode for your main character. And we've got some new tests for the 10v10 Capture the Flag that's coming, as well as a new arena map preview. But in this video, we're just going to look at those actual changes to the game and combat-wise, especially what's changing. I'll be honest, there are some really good changes here, and there are some fucking terrible changes here. So let's get into it. There are new potions coming. We've got the Burst Regen Potion, small burst of healing followed by passive regen. A Health Shot Potion, similar to the Health Potion, provides less healing, but can be used more often. A Shield Potion grants damage reduction for 3 hits taken, and then it lasts until the timer runs out or you've taken the hits. A Grit Potion grants the uninterruptible status effect for the duration. This is the one that I think is going to be having a huge impact on the meta. And then Lifesteal Potion, increase the power of all your lifesteal. And then there's new gems and perks. This is exciting, man. Oh my god, 2 new gem types and multiple combat perks. We've got the Jade Gem perks. Plagued. Basic attacks inflict a stack of disease, reducing the target's incoming healing by 2.5% and outgoing by 1.25%. For a max of 10 stacks. Oh my god, Rapier with Plagued. That's going to be insane. I know it's a bit of a damage cut, but healing reduction is huge for PvP. And then Plagued Ward, minus 6.2% disease duration per armor perk or trinket that has this gem slotted. Again, huge deal for PvP. Then we've got Turquoise Penetrating, plus 12% armor penetration. Oh man, that is very PvP. I guess the mobs have armor too, so we'll see how that ends up working out, but very interesting. And then Hardened, plus 3% physical and elemental armor per a perk or trinket that has the gem slotted. So definitely a bit of a mix-up to the meta there. Now let's look at the new attack perks, which I guess are going to be found on weapons. We've got Sundering Stacks. Attacks inflict a stack of 4% rend, each stack lasting 6 seconds for a max of 5 stacks found on main hand weapons. I feel like this is going to be really good. 4% rend up to 20% rend on the opponent. I mean, 1 flurry with the Rapier and you put all that rend on them. So, yeah. Alternating Enchantment. Hitting with a basic attack will increase the base damage of the next ability hit within 5 seconds by 10%. And then hitting with an ability will do the same for the base damage of your next basic attack within 5 seconds, increasing it by 10%, and these are found only on melee weapons. We've got Vital Synergy. While health is below 50%, gain 20% stamina regen rate, and while stamina is below 50%, incoming healing is increased by 20%. Oh my god, this looks so good. This is going to be a crazy good PvP perk. Hardcore Parkour, gain 18% haste for 5 seconds after triggering a traversal action found on footwear. Holy crap, 18% haste after a gap closer? That's insane. That's all I can say. The haste stacking is really starting to get wild right now. And then we've got Stop, Drop, and Roll. Dodging will reduce the current duration of all burn damage over time effects on you by 25%, and this is found on amulets. I don't know how good this will be. I mean, this is very specifically to counter Fire Staff, so against Fire Staff, it'll be great. But, for example, is this going to be better than the Shirking Dot Cleanse is kind of my thought. And then the armor perks. These can stack up to 3 times. We've got Potent Alacrity. Increase the potency of all haste status effects on you by 9%. What? This haste is getting out of control, man. Then Potent Energy, decrease the potency of all exhaust effects on you by 12%. I kind of like this. I think it's still pretty niche, but exhaust is definitely rough to deal with in PvP if you get hit by a lot of it. Then we've got the Anointed Potions, 3% increase in healing from consumables. And then the Anointed Lifesteal, 4% increase in healing from lifesteals. Again, these perks can only stack up to 3 times, but these are big perk changes. Increase the base damage of the following weapons in PvE and then reduce their values to where they were previously in PvP. So for all these combat changes, Bow's damage in PvE is up 12%. Musket is up 11.5%. Blunderbuss is up 12%. They did some additional reduction to it to be a little bit weaker in PvP than it currently is to address balance. So Blunderbuss is actually getting nerfed in PvP. Flail's damage is up 14%. Ice Gauntlets, 13.6% increased damage. Warhammer, 7.1% increased damage. Great Axe, 8.5%. Hatchet, 6.3%. Fire Staff, 4.8% damage, and they made it a little bit weaker in PvP as well. So Fire Staff nerfed for PvP too. And then Void Gauntlet is up 6.7% in damage as well. The range fall off for bow has been reduced from 40 to 30 meters. The ranged fall off for musket has been reduced from 50 to 40 meters. And then the max distance of the musket optimal range passive has been reduced to 40 meters instead of 50, and increased the damage from 5 to 7.5%. So musket actually looks like it's getting a little bit of a damage buff through this change if you're using that perk, and most people do, especially in PvP. They reduced the 100 con attribute for your additional health from 10% to 5%, a huge nerf. And the free-for-all PvP zone, you can no longer enter Death's Door. So if you get killed, you are downed and die instantly. And then the perk changes. Here we go. Gems, the Malachite, increased power from 12% to 14%, and other tiers respectively. Onyx increased the power from 18 to 20%. And then Moonstone Slash Ward has been reduced by 25% or 0.25%, sorry, across the board for each tier. So simply because Slash is such a common damage type, and the Slash Ward will reduce the bleeding damage you take as well. Keenly Fortified has been increased in power from 10 to 15%, and the duration is now 5%, and the cooldown has been reduced to 7 seconds. So a big buff to that one there. Fractured Rend, they increased the power to 16% and the duration up to 6 seconds. Trenchant Rend, they increased the max duration from 12 to 14%, made it twice the base duration, and reduced the cooldown to 10 seconds. So a big buff to that one too. Grit Ward, they reduced the power from 3% to 2.6% per piece. Disdained Infliction, they increased the cooldown from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. And then Desperate Empower, they added additional functionality that grants up to 10% haste while exhausted. This is huge because one of the worst things about becoming exhausted is that you lose that sprint bonus. So giving you 10% haste when you become exhausted all of a sudden makes Desperate Empower a very desirable perk. Mortal Lifesteal, they updated the perk so that it will now roll on armor, but it's a little bit weaker on armor than it is on weapons. They added a functionality that grants a small amount of lifesteal on hits and exists in addition to the health stolen on kill functionality. Very interesting. So this is kind of like an armor perk that could give you more just base lifesteal as well. Mortal Energy allowed the perk to roll on armor, but replaced values so they are lower on armor than they are on weapons as well. Mortal Fortification got the same treatment. You can get it on armor, but the values are a little bit lower than they are on weapons. And same with Mortal Power. It's now on armor, but less powerful than it is when it's on the weapon. Mortal Refreshment also got this treatment, so it's going to be on armor too, but on top of it, they slightly reduced the amount of heart rune charges player get from perk and artifact dot ticks. So I think that's actually kind of a nerf. We'll see how that ends up playing out. And then Vigor, they increased the max value to 23% per stack. There's some real anti-dot there. Vigor slowly becoming a better and better perk as time goes on. Stamina Recovery has been nerfed to 40 stamina instead of 60. I still think it's going to be a really useful perk because the whole point of it is to give you that additional roll when your health is low and you have no stamina left or very little stamina left. And then Leeching Flurry, they nerfed the shit out of it. Oh my god. They went from 33% on armor, 60% on weapons to 26% on armor and 45% on weapons. This makes me sad because I just recently got a very lucky Leeching Flurry Rapier. Enfeebling Poison Shot, they increased the weakened duration from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. Enfeebling Skewer got the opposite, reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. Leeching Cyclone also got a big nerf here, 65% to 58%. But it's just on the weapon that it got nerfed, not on the armor. Actually, that's way less of a nerf than Leeching Flurry on the Rapier got. Yeah, they really hate Rapier this patch, I guess. Lasting Rain of Arrows, they added additional functionality that increases damage while further away than 20 meters. Deadly Flourish added a functionality that will cause the next hit to be a guaranteed crit. So they're trying to make this perk a little bit more useful for Rapier. We'll see how that plays out. And then Voracious Blade, they reduced the lifesteal from 35%/55% to 28% and 44%. And then for attribute jump points, they reduced the duration extension of dots for the 150 dex attribute from 15 to 10% and the 250 intelligence from 30 to 20%. And then some illegal perk combos have been changed. The Frigid Dawn set reduced the efficiency of Enchanted Ward and Elemental Aversion perks on these items by 15%. Oof, these are very popular. And then Serenity and Venom reduced the efficiency of Trenchant Strikes and Trenchant Crits on these items by 10%. Holy crap, man. Serenity is bad now. Big changes to how consumables work. If you use a consumable of a certain type, like a survival potion, when you use that consumable, the other types of potions that aren't the one that you just used will be on 80% of their base cooldown instead of 100%. So this kind of emphasizes the bonus of using different types of survival potion consumables alongside each other instead of just one. So we might go back to seeing health and regen potions being used in conjunction with each other. But this 20% cooldown reduction for shared cooldowns does not stack with any other cooldown reduction source. So I'm curious if this is kind of invalidating the Refreshing Toast perk on the earring. Regen Serum got big changes to it. It is now back on a 25-second duration for the potion itself, but the cooldown is increased to 40 seconds. And they adjusted the healing values to account for the duration changes from 300 to 400 health per tick and plus 0.8% to 1.1% of max health per tick as well. Now, I'm curious if this means the Regen Serum is now its own cooldown. I don't know. Again, these are big changes here. Desert Sunrise got a huge buff, 17.5% dot reduction to 25% dot reduction, further emphasizing the need to use this for PvP combat. Now we've got a few artifact changes. The Wall, they added functionality that slightly reduces stamina regen rate by 10% while equipped, and it now has a 13% elemental damage reduction and 10% elemental armor. So yeah, some nerfs to the Wall for sure. Butcher, they reduced the power from 33% to 25%. So nerf to that guy too. Survivor's Coat with a huge nerf. 50 stamina gain to 20. That's right, ain't nobody using this anymore. Inferno, they made it so you can no longer put any elemental conversion gems on Inferno. They didn't work anyway if you put them on before, so this is just kind of a fix more than anything else. And then they updated the Heavy Burden, Shrapnel Shot, and Inner Power artifact perks to be more clear that they work on both weapons. Now some Heart Gem or Heart Rune changes. Dark Ascent, they increased the amount of iframes during the Ascent's uptime from 15 to 30, so you get a lot more duration of being unhittable when you use it, and the AoE has also been increased. The Devourer, they added Grit to the startup of the attack and to the first few frames of casting it. And then Primal Fury, they increased the base damage of the weapon by 15%. They decreased the weaken inflicted on self to 15% on the Extending Coats perk. They decreased the armor reduction on self to 15% on the Extending Claws perk. They updated or adjusted the velocity while jumping. We'll see how it looks when we get to see it in game. And now for those weapon changes, and this makes me sad, man, because holy crap, it's like they don't even, whatever, we'll get into it. Omnidirectional Evade for Rapier has been nerfed from 20 to 14%. Evade Crescendo has been reduced from 30 to 25%. Momentum has been reduced from 30 to 25%. Jesus, man, they just nerfed the shit out of Rapier. Like, outside of a PvE DPS weapon, we hardly ever see Rapier used as an offensive weapon in PvP, and they just fucking gutted it. Sword and Shield, though, they decided not to nerf it at all. They just added a 1-second cooldown to the round shield's benefit, and that's it. Fuck, man. Like, do they even play PvP? What is this shit? Ice Gauntlet, they made some changes to wind chill, so it's not knocking down targets or knocking them further away than intended. Flail, just some fixes, nothing really changed there. Blunderbuss, Run and Gun, they shortened the haste duration to better match the reload time of it, and they increased the haste speed to compensate for the shorter duration. Ice Gauntlet again, these are just fixes, but that's funny that they had to mention it twice. Musket, they just made some fixes to it, otherwise no big changes there. Void Gauntlet, Void Blade, they reduced the Void Blade heavy attack translation. Finally, a perk that, or a change to the weapon that people actually wanted. Oh my god, so they won't have as good tracking with the heavy attack anymore. Fire Staff, base damage reduced by 3%. That is not a lot of damage reduction. And then just some fixes to it as well. And then some updates for target lock on Life Staff. And that's it. Just more fixes. Well, lots of changes coming with this new season, guys. Love to hear what you think, especially about those balance changes. I feel like AGS really missed the mark on some of them. But hey, it's AGS. They're going to do what they're going to do. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.